The second habit of Stephen Covey is called start with the end in mind. And it was this habit and this idea that I first started to realize that leadership is just like parenting, because this is so obvious. It's such a natural idea. It's such an obvious approach. And you should parent with the end in mind to release the tension of the day-to-day stress and struggles. Let's dive in and reconsider and unpack the idea of Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind. Stephen Covey is giving several metaphors, and in order to understand it, he gives building a house. If you build a house, you're first gonna design that house. You're gonna design it in the biggest detail possible to envision what kind of house you would like at the end. And only after a long time of design, you're gonna start building and buy some cement and bricks, and you actually start building the house. But before that stage, you envision what kind of house it will be. Well, I think that's kind of challenging for me. I'm not an architect myself, so to understand the concept of the idea, and it's good and it's nice, but I think there is a stronger metaphor for parents. So a second approach on this end in mind idea is that Stephen starts the chapter by telling you that you should reconsider your own funeral, which is kind of awkward to do, but it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. And then if you remind yourself of your own funeral, if you can envision your own funeral, there will be speeches. So that idea alone, to have speeches on your funeral, is very powerful. Who will be speaking on your funeral? It most likely will not be the boss you're working for today, but quite certain it will be one of your kids. It will be one of your kids. That's kind of very likely to happen, no? And that idea alone, that your kids will be speaking on your funeral and your boss not, makes the end in mind already a bit easier to grasp. So I think it's interesting to reconsider that your kids will be speaking on your funeral. So what will they say? No, what will they say about you? And because you envision that today, you have the opportunity to influence that speech by acting upon that today. And that's what Stephen Covey means with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. Start parenting as if you are already giving input for that speech of your son or daughter in hopefully 80, 70, 80, 90 years from now, no? And that's very powerful. That's very powerful. And that's what I really like about this second habit. Start with the end in mind. And there are a few ideas that are very powerful. This is reconsider who is speaking in the first place, no? And the ones that will be speaking, most likely that's what matters in life. Those relations matter the most in life. And then think about what they would say. And the relationship with your own kids is one that is very powerful, and most likely your kid will give that speech. And to continue with that metaphor that Stephen Covey gives of the house, I think to envision your relationship with your own kids later on in life is much easier than envision to build a house, because you have a perfect benchmark. That's the relationship with your own father, with your own mother. So how is my relationship with my parents? And think about it. What do you like? What is super? What would you hope to have the same with your own kids? What do you not like so much? And what would you definitely do different or try to do different? Think about that. And because parenting with the end in mind means that today you have the choice. That's the proactive approach in life, the first habit basically, that you can live towards that goal, towards that end in mind goal. And that's very powerful. And I love that principle. So that's it. And you can also look around and be inspired by the relationships between parents and their kids. I listened to a podcast of Erik van der Horst, and he's interviewing his father. And man, I love the openness, the deeper layer, the relationship that drips out of that is so clear in that interview. And that's wonderful. And I would love to work towards that element of the relationship now. And it's much more complex because I do love many parts of the relationship I have with my own parents, but I do have ideas on other parts of that. And that is what this Erik van der Horst brought to the table for me. And that's cool. And that's my end in mind. And I'm trying hard I do my best to work towards that goal. So a temper tantrum today is less of an issue for me because I parent with the end in mind, and that doesn't make an influence for that later goal in life, that master goal of the relationship I try to develop with my kids.